circulating reports that the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury is removing 100% of examination fees and invigilation are disturbing, to say the least. But it is even more retrogressive to see that the money that we used to pay for sitting and examination, both in Class 8 and Form 4, and which was generously removed by Uhuru Kenyatta's government to a great relief for hundreds of thousands of families, is now being derogated. How much more shall we destroy education? From reducing capitation to descaling the education infrastructure across the country, and now removing examination fees and the money that teachers who are invigilating exams are paid, I do not think education should suffer this more this soon. Without saying much more, I would ask Professor Jogona Ndongo to reconsider that decision. He may not have been a beneficiary of free primary education. Neither was he a beneficiary of free-day secondary education. Professor Ndongo is not a beneficiary of TVET capitation. But indeed, Professor Ndongo was a beneficiary of university capitation that government generously offered for him as a Bachelor of Arts student, economics in the University of Nairobi in the 80s. Professor Ndongo knows the value of subsidized education. Professor Ndongo is a beneficiary of it, and Professor Ndongo should not be sitting in the central office where money is disbursed in Kenya to destroy the dreams of millions of young people. Paying 4,000 shillings in our time for KCSE was not a mean feat. Paying 1,200 shillings for KCPE was not a mean feat. And indeed, I remember in both occasions, my mother could not afford. How I survived is a story of another day. I am sending this small video to whomever may forward to him. I have his number, but I don't forward it myself. Whomever may forward this to Cabinet Secretary for Treasury to tell him that even if he must be passing irony in the public service, it must not be directed towards education. Education has suffered far too vicious, too soon in the last 2 years. In terms of removing subsidies and capitation, cutting and descaling all levers, this one should not be there. Save KCSE students and KCSE families, family pain. Because if you remove that examination fee that government was giving to students, you'll be derogating the value and access to education. Professor Ndongo, you and I come from Murang'a. Professor Ndongo, you and I are born from very, very poor backgrounds. People call them humble backgrounds, but there's a difference between a humble background and a poor background. We didn't come from humble backgrounds. We came from penury, if you would call it. We came from extremely poor. There's a better word in Kikuyu. Ate toimire okeaine, not even venaine. Get this difference, Professor. Remember, your days in that office, someday somehow, will come to an end. Whether it is tomorrow or after 10 years. Remember, Professor, you will be remembered not by the things that you didn't do, but by the things that you did wrong. The things that you will have done wrong will not have been about big corporations, will not have been about debt of a country, but will have been about removing the last bastion that the poor people hid under. Reconsider this decision and don't remove the money that was supposed to pay for examination fees across the country. Professor, have a good time. Professor Jogona Ndongo, as you put your pen down to allocate and reassign government resources, which is our taxes, remember, it is better to help one poor man than to disappoint a million rich people. Take that home.